Listening Fanfiction presents The Grand Vizier of Oz by Cedric, based off the musical Wicked. Narrated for you by Sierra Fees. Chapter 1. The Reporter. Year 25. Spring.
Excuse me, coming through. Excuse me, that hurts. Which way are you?
The offending footstepper heard nothing of this complaint, worming his way through the crowd in the vain hope of getting just a little bit closer to the grand balcony. Nara Verchtwit, reporter for The Glow, leaned on the shoulder of some random person as she tried to rub her bruised toes without dropping her precious camera. It was a sunny day in the Emerald City, and that didn't much help her mood. The city was so bright and clean that it was almost painful in this light, and Nara had to squint if she looked at anything but the ever-moving sea of green fabric in front of her. Muttering rudely, cursing herself for losing her tinted glasses, she wriggled back into her shoe and took hold of a lamppost, trying to climb it. Most of the city had turned out for this announcement, and it was heavily rumored that the wizard himself would be making an appearance. Gossip from the palace staff, printed, of course, in every low-class tabloid Nera could get her hands on, claimed that Lady Glinda had been ecstatically happy these last few days, more so than usual, that is, that she had involved all of her few close friends in some sort of preparations, and, most tellingly, that her favorite seamstress had ordered several bolts of white lace and silk. Needless to say, even Nera's own magazine had been printing every picture they had of Lady Glinda and that winky prince, and Nera herself was quietly sure she already knew everything that was going to be said, save for why the great Oz would trouble himself with a public appearance. After all, there were more important things to think about than the engagement of his beautiful apprentice. It was no secret that the wizard looked on Lady Glinda like a daughter, and a marriage to Vincon royalty would certainly have political ramifications, but really, why bother? The Great Oz was extremely busy dealing with all these animal issues, and though it wasn't widely spoken of, Nero thought it must be very tiring for him to change from his normal, imposing form into a human all the time. Suddenly, there was a soft cry from those lucky, and probably very bushy, people who had managed to get to the front, and applause broke out across the square as a figure appeared on the grand balcony. Slim, soft, and lovely, it had to be Lady Glinda. She smiled, lifting a hand to wave and exciting a thunderous applause. Even Nera smiled. No one could help but like Glinda. Two other people were coming out with her, more subdued in their dress. Neither sparkled as Glinda did, and it took a brief moment, filled with the sound of her snapping camera, for Nera to be sure she recognized them. One was Fiero Tigular, of course, as unfairly handsome as ever in his casual blue vest, and the other... It was her! The Green Lady, the Grand Vizier of Oz, Lady Elphaba. Nera might have been less surprised if it was the wizard, except for her introductory presentation to Ozian society. Lady Elphaba never bothered with public appearances unless it was about one of her new laws concerning animal rights, which Nera was sure this was not. Her sources in the cabinet, 4 cleaning maids and a bribable assistant, hadn't reported anything unusual, and even that one time when the Vizier had surprised everyone with her Equality Employment Act, there had still been whispers of late-night file-checking and hushed conversations. This time, nothing. Lady Elphaba, or the Green Lady, as she had been so appropriately nicknamed, was standing quietly beside the others, wearing one of her usual in dark green dresses, with a matching pointed hat that added height and prestige. She seemed less solemn than usual, Nera thought, but then again, who was she to say, hanging from a lamppost a good 30 feet away? Lady Glinda kept waving and smiling, but seemed to be waiting for something. The prince kept glancing between the dark doorway and the Green Lady, and for a brief moment Nera swore he touched her hand. Or said something, maybe. Whatever it was, Lady Elphaba suddenly smiled, and Nera was quick to capture the image. Snap, snap, snap!
Don't know what she thinks she's doing up there, muttered a nearby Ozian. Too good to see us the rest of the time, isn't she?
Oh, hush, said his wife. I think she's shy. And anyway, what's wrong with not talking unless there's something important to say?
Oz knows you do it often enough.
She wants to seem mysterious, chimed in an older woman, a mint-frosted cupcake with the air of one who was generously willing to share her wisdom with the next generation.
It's a common trick with young leaders. Those girls aren't a day over 25. How else could she expect to command your respect?
Lady Glinda doesn't have that problem,
argued the husband, briefly softening as he gazed at the sorceress.
Lady Glinda isn't Queen, snapped the wife. And anyway, it's all a lie. I've seen the tabloids. They're not nearly as grown up as they'd like us to think.
Nira, still keeping her eye on the balcony, smirked. The wizard's star pupils weren't grown up at all. Her peers had caught endless snaps of the pair laughing and chatting as they shopped or dined in town, usually with their escort prince. She'd taken such pictures herself and was particularly proud of the time she'd caught a snap of Lady Elphaba with strawberry ice cream spilled into the lap of her skirt. That had made the Globe's front page and proved to the world that the Green Lady was nowhere near as mature and sophisticated as she wanted people to think. But she was intimidating. On the day of the ice cream incident, Nira had taken 3 snaps and run, secretly terrified that the powerful sorceress would turn her into a newt or something. Oh, everyone knew that she did good for the people of Oz, but no one could ever really get over that skin. Green, really? Could fate have picked anything more ironic? And those eyes, such intensity, such expression. Even through the time delays of developed photographs, Nira felt a chill whenever that stare fixed on her. It always made her feel like a scolded schoolgirl. She wasn't the only one. Up on the balcony, where there was obviously some sort of delay, Lady Glinda was entertaining reporters by explaining her newest fashion statement, one-sleeve coats, and Prince Fiero had been asked a few polite questions. But no one approached the dark green lady. Then a cry, delight, awe, sheer shock. Heavily ornamented soldiers in stiff uniforms and tall hats marched through the door, striding in perfect sync and pivoting neatly on their heels before striking their heavy staves against the ground. A gong sounded. Lady Glinda stepped back, as did the Green Lady and the Prince, making room for the wizard.
Nira squealed, snapping pictures as fast as she could with trembling fingers, trying to keep it above the flailing hands gloved in green that waved frantically at their leader. The wizard, Great Oz himself. Oh, Nira had never seen him, not personally anyway. She'd spent a week refusing to speak to a co-worker who had been that lucky, and now her Ozian pride was bubbling through her veins like a drug. She was seeing the wizard! He had taken human form again. No one had ever managed to capture an image of his natural state, and it was rumored to be magically impossible, and was thoughtful enough to appear as a kind elderly gentleman, the sort that reminded Nira of her storytelling grandfather. He smiled and waved, and Nira had to hold up her dear life as the crowd surged, screaming joy and praise. They seemed to go on forever. The sheer energy of the people was enormous. A small sarcastic part of Nira's mind wondered if the wizard avoided public appearances just to escape the noise-induced headache. Then she scolded herself. How could the Great Oz get headaches? Suddenly, a funny thing happened, so fast that Nira almost missed it and certainly didn't have time to ready her camera. Lady Elphaba coughed. Not a natural, sorry, I'm a little ill cough, but the sort of irritated cough one makes when annoyed or impatient, and the wizard standing beside her was briefly startled. Was that possible? He glanced at her. She was frowning, and lowered his waving hand, gesturing for Lady Glinda to take the podium. It was possibly the first time in history that anyone had been disappointed to hear Glinda speak. Fellow Ozians, she said brightly, I am delighted to be the bearer of happy news. Yes, she said, lifting a finger as excited chatter filled the square. Possibly the happiest news that anyone can deliver, news to which our beloved leader...
Here she had to stop as cheers erupted again, and nearly 30 seconds passed before her gestures for silence were heeded.
Our beloved leader has given his personal consent and blessing. Friends, she declared, raising her arms in an open gesture of welcome, 1 month from today, we will join together to celebrate a day of happiness. 1 month from today, we will celebrate.
Nira readied her camera. This was going to be good!